Okay, I'm Mike Willis. We've got another edition of Team USA Tuesday. Today I'm joined by national team member Desiree Zavala. Desiree is number 3 on the national team at 62 kilograms. Desiree, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. So thanks for taking some time and coming on. I've got a list of questions here for you. You ready to jump into them?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's do it. Starting off, what is your favorite movie?
At the moment, I don't think I really have one, but I have been binge watching The Challenge, which is like an MTV kind of reality show over quarantine. So, in winter break, that's been my show.
What is The Challenge?
It's almost like Survivor, but instead of them like living in the woods, they live in like a big fancy house and they compete, do like physical challenges for a lot of money. It's a pretty good show.
Doesn't sound too bad. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty good show.
Do you like reality shows in general like that? Is that kind of your genre?
Not really, but I like that one. My mom got me into it, so I was at home over Christmas break watching it with her, and then she got me addicted to it. So
Fair enough.
yeah.
All right. Second question: who is your favorite musical artist?
I would say it changes, but right now I've really been into like Mac Miller lately, like his really old music. I've been listening to that a lot.
Yeah, rest in peace.
Yeah, sad.
When you warm up, do you listen to music, or are you like a no headphones type of person?
I definitely listen to music.
Mac Miller or something else?
Usually I just put my phone on shuffle and I'll just kind of look for something with a good beat and just listen to the beat of kind of whatever.
Gotcha. What is your favorite food, and maybe favorite food when you're cutting weight, and then favorite food when you can eat whatever you want?
My favorite food when I can eat whatever I want is definitely Mexican food, like of any kind. And then my favorite food when I'm cutting weight, I would say I really like this is gonna sound weird, but I really like to eat hard-boiled eggs with sauerkraut and avocado, like all mixed together with salt and pepper. It sounds weird, but it's actually really good.
It does sound really weird, but it also doesn't sound bad. I feel like that could work all together.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Interesting. What is your favorite sport to watch other than wrestling?
I don't watch any other sports other than wrestling. Every here and there I'll watch maybe like football if it's on, but I don't go out of my way to watch any other sport other than wrestling.
Who is your favorite wrestler to watch then, past or present?
I would say right now, just over this past weekend, Tamara, she was like so fun to watch, and that was such an exciting match. And I just love watching her. I think she's fun to watch, and she's a great person. So,
yeah, what were your thoughts in general on that kind of super match? I mean, I know as a wrestling fan, I thought it was pretty much the coolest thing in the world. What did you think as like a national team member, seeing two of the best that we have kind of putting it all on the line against each other?
I thought it was awesome for the sport, and it was just like a super exciting matchup. I think it was big news for women's wrestling. But I was really nervous for the match because I was out there in Austin, so we were like sitting there waiting, and I was like biting my nails. I was like, I'm not even wrestling. Why am I so nervous? It was such an exciting matchup, and they hyped it up really well, so that was cool.
Yeah, it really was, and they went out there and put on a great match.
Mm-hmm.
So, what are some of your hobbies off the mat?
I really love outdoors. I love camping. I love hiking. I love fishing. But I've been really busy with school and wrestling and work, so I haven't been able to do much of that. And then there's the fact that I live in Texas, so there's not much of that around here anyways. But when I'm back home in Washington, I definitely love to be outdoors as much as possible.
You can be funny or you can be serious with this answer, but what is your biggest fear?
Ooh, that's a good one. Honestly, I would say spiders. I'm not even being funny. I'm serious. I'm terrified of spiders. It doesn't matter how big they are or what kind of spider. If I see a spider, I'm running out of the house. Yeah.
Fair enough. How did you first get involved in wrestling?
So when I was 4 years old, my next door neighbor coached like the little club team in our town, and they had kids that wrestled, and they were the same age as me. And I was like a major tomboy, like always playing out in the dirt, always playing with the boys. And I wanted to go to practice with them one day. And the coach told me, no, I don't think you'll like it. Like, no, it's for boys. And then I begged and begged my mom. She said the same thing, like, I don't know, I don't know. And then one day the coach said, all right, I'll take you. You can go to practice with me. But if you cry, I'm taking you back home and you're never going again. So he took me one day and I just loved it. And I kept going every day. And here I am.
So you were hooked. There was like
Yeah.
no period of time where you're like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this. Like you knew from the moment you were on the mat, it was the sport for you.
Yeah. I don't even remember a time in my life where I wasn't wrestling. I've been wrestling since I was 4. So I don't remember a time when I wasn't competing.
Did you play any other sports growing up?
I played like softball, t-ball. And then in high school, I played softball for a few years. I did cross country for a few years, and then I did swim for 1 year.
Okay. So you have been competing, at the collegiate level for Wayland Baptist. You've been there for, over a year at this point. What led you to Wayland Baptist, and what does your season look like this year?
So I've had a pretty, I would say, unique college experience compared to most other athletes. I've competed at 3 different colleges. And so pretty much what happened with Wayland was I was at Grays Harbor College in Washington, and that kind of fell apart. And I had originally signed to come to Wayland when our old coach at Grays Harbor was supposed to come on and coach here at Wayland. And so I was going to follow him here. And then he ended up not coming, but I was already signed. So I was like, what the heck? What do I have to lose? I might as well go. And so here I am. And I'm really glad I did make that decision. Just because I was at a point where I was not really training much. I was not really competing much. And Wayland has a great program, and we have great girls on the team. We're number 1 in the NAI right now. So I would say training wise, our schedule is better than most. So Texas is not too strict as far as COVID goes. So we're able to practice on the mat daily. We're able to compete as much as we want, but where we're facing problems is finding teams that are able to compete as well, because most schools are not competing. But we had a tournament last weekend. We have a tournament this upcoming weekend. We have a duel the next weekend. We have conference the next weekend. And then a few weekends after that, we have nationals. So we're going to be pretty busy.
So what are you majoring in, first of all? And then second of all, given that you're already on the national team while still being in college, I assume that wrestling is in your post-collegiate plans. But, do you know what that looks like for you yet? Or where are you with all of that?
Well, I'm a senior. So after this semester, I'll have 3 more classes left to take until I graduate. And I'm in the Bachelor's of Applied Science program with a specialization in English. And honestly, I don't really know what I want to do with that degree. I just know I want to do something education related, so I picked that. But as far as like after college, I know I'm definitely still planning on competing in wrestling, but I'm not 100% sure as far as like where I'm going or what I'm going to do. I'm just kind of like taking it day by day, and I'm going to see what opportunities are available to me after I graduate.
So during this quarantine period, you've probably wrestled more than most people. You've been on 3 separate cards, and you won the U23s this past November in Nebraska. What has it been like to be able to compete on those cards and to get those matches in, and to win a pretty big tournament, biggest age group tournament in the country, all while the sport is somewhat shut down?
I would say I'm just really lucky to have been given the opportunity to get on those cards, because I know a lot of people are not given those opportunities. And I would say it's just beneficial just in the being able to keep that competition mindset that so many are not being able to have right now, just with everything going on. And I feel like another benefit is that it keeps me in the mentality of like I have something to train for, because sometimes it gets really hard to be consistent with your training when you have nothing to look forward to. So I think that's been really helpful throughout quarantine to just keep me on top of my goals and on top of my training.
How does going and getting invited to the cards kind of unfold, or how has it happened for you? Like how did you get invited to participate?
The Nittany Lion card, actually, Sally Roberts, which she's the founder of Wrestle Like a Girl. She's from Washington State. And I've known Sally for years, and she just kind of reached out to me and was like, hey, I have this match. Do you want to take it? They're looking for someone to wrestle. And I was just like, heck yeah. And so we just figured it out last minute and got me out there. And as far as flow goes, that was actually just kind of random. They reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to wrestle Macy back in, I think it was on Halloween back in October. And they were really cool to work with. They really made the whole process really easy. They just were kind of like, here's a date. And I live in Texas, so obviously that would make it easier for them as well. I'm a few hours away from there. And then the second time, the same thing. They just reached out to me and they said, hey, we want you to wrestle on the Burroughs card. And this was about a month ago. And then my opponent ended up backing out, so it got canceled. And then like 6 days before the card, they hit me up again and they're like, hey, we found Rana, do you want to wrestle? And I was like, in 6 days, sure, why not? So I mean, I just went out there and wrestled. So that kind of just fell into my lap last minute too. But yeah.
So we've seen you kind of at a couple different weight classes, and again, it's like weird rules with the plus 2 kilos or plus 3 kilos or whatever it is. Is 62 you're going to be your weight class going forward?
I am kind of still on the fence about it. I feel like maybe I am a really small 62. I walk around at like 64 kilos at the heaviest. I don't ever get bigger than that. So I'm kind of playing around with 59, just seeing how it feels to make it, at least getting close to making it. I've made 61 so far. But I plan on making 59 for the Captain's Cup coming up. And then depending on how I feel at that, go back and forth for maybe like 59 to 62.
So Captain's Cup, obviously not too much has been released about it yet. A lot of details are still kind of getting hashed out. But how cool is it, do you think, that there's going to be, this big senior women's event, featuring some Team USA's biggest stars and kind of just showcasing women's freestyle in general?
I think it's awesome, and I think like we've made leaps and bounds as far as like getting women's wrestling out there compared to a year ago at this time. We were still battling to like get women on cards, and now we're going to events where there's 3 women's matches on these big cards. And I think the Captain's Cup is just going to help kind of slingshot that in the right direction, where especially because it's picked up by Flow Wrestling, it's going to be exciting to watch. And I think it's just going to help grow the fan base for women's wrestling. And I think there's going to be some great matchups. So it's just going to make it more exciting to watch. So it's super cool.
What do you think were some of the catalysts in the past year that have really helped sort of women's wrestling get more promotion and get more matches and to get on more of these cards?
I would say that COVID was probably a big part of it, just because there was when USA Wrestling canceled all the events, it kind of put the power into like the clubs and like organizations like Flow Wrestling or Rockfin, like into their hands to like keep wrestling going. So I think the publicity that came with that is really what helped it out. And then again, like just women athletes on social media, the wrestlers, branding themselves and building their following base, and like Flow Wrestling hosting more and sharing more about women's wrestling just helps spread the fan base out.
If you had to pick one piece of advice you've been given in your career, one the best advice you've been given in your career by anybody? What do you think it's been?
That's a good one. I would say I kind of have two. One of them is to make sure that you're always having fun and doing it for the right reasons, because wrestling is too hard of a sport to do if you hate it. Like there's no point to be out there miserable hating it. There's obviously going to be some aspects that are not fun and that you're not going to like, but overall just make sure that you still love the sport and you're competing for the right reasons. And then another one would just be to take advantage of the time that you have competing, because there is going to come a time when you're not able to compete anymore. And you don't want to look back and say, man, I wish I did this differently, or man, I really should have, focused more or trained more or taken this opportunity, because it's gone. When it's gone, it's gone.
So similar type of question. What advice would you give to somebody lacing up their shoes for the first practice of their wrestling career?
Again, my advice would be almost the same. Just make sure you're having fun. Obviously, like you said, it's not going to be fun all the time, but just make sure that you're doing it because you love it, and just really soaking in all the time and the opportunities that you have. I think that it's never too late to start wrestling, and I think that wrestling teaches just great life lessons at any level, regardless of how successful you are. And so I would encourage anyone to wrestle. If you're 50 years old, go out there and wrestle. I mean, I feel like there's always something to be learned and something to be taught. But I would say my advice would be, that's a good question. I'm trying to think back to when I first started wrestling, and just stay optimistic and don't get overwhelmed would be a good piece of advice, because it can be overwhelming at times and it's easy to get discouraged, especially when you're in a room where you're getting beaten up every day, and you feel like you're not getting better, you feel like you're not improving. Just keep chugging away every day, and each day you're going to get a little bit better.
Where do you find your motivation for your hardest training sessions?
I would say my goals. So I write down my goals on a sheet of paper, and I don't really keep them with me anymore, but I do have them in my phone. And like days when I'm feeling like I don't feel like going to practice, or days when I'm feeling like, oh, I don't want to do that, I'm tired, I just remind myself of my goals. And I remind myself that cheating myself is not going to help me reach my goals. So I really just try to be my biggest competitor, really, and just try to improve every day, even if it's just one little thing every day.
All right. And the last question I have for you today.
Okay.
What is your best wrestling memory to date?
I would say my best, most memorable wrestling experience to date would be taking second at the US Open in 2019, and not because of my performance or anything like that, but just because that was my first competition back after taking over a year off, because I had a really serious back injury. And I was told by several doctors and specialists that I would never be able to wrestle again and to stop wrestling. One doctor was like, well, wrestling isn't going to pay your bills. You're not a professional wrestler, retire. Just straight up told me that. And I was crushed. And I almost started believing myself that my days of competing were over, and I feel like I hadn't really, accomplished everything that I was capable of. And then I trained for a month and came back and took second. And so it was just it's a really good memory that I have myself, just to remind myself that I'm capable of achieving anything that I set my mind to. So that's a really important memory for me.
So I said that was the last question, but I did have to follow up. Where, again, same type of question, but where did you find that motivation to say, no, the doctors are wrong, I'm going to wrestle again?
I would say it was almost like a miracle. So I had a bulging disc in my lower back, and it was really bad to the point where I couldn't get out of bed some days. I couldn't stand for too long. I couldn't walk for too long. It was really bad for about a year. And then one day I woke up and didn't hurt anymore. Like I have no idea what happened. Like I went to the doctors and they're like, yeah, we don't know if it's not hurting, go ahead. And so that kind of was like, in my opinion, just like like fate telling me like, you know, like you're not done, you still have some time left in you. So that really motivated me. It was kind of just like a second chance, the way I viewed it. So right away, that's when I was living in Washington, coaching at the time at Grays Harbor. I had like retired not retired. I had taken a year off and was coaching. And as soon as I felt better, I was like, dang, I better get after it. So I moved down here to Texas in the spring 2 years ago and trained for a month, and then hit the US Open, hit, you know, senior nationals, hit world team trials. And that's really what like slingshotted me back into competing.
Well, that's a crazy story, but
yeah, it's crazy.
you know, hey, wrestling is better for having you in it as a competitor. And you know, it's really cool to hear that, and obviously wish you nothing but the best in the future, and hopefully, you know, years more of being able to compete and go out there at the highest level and do your thing. So, yeah, looking forward to seeing that.
Thank you. I appreciate you taking the time out to talk to me.
Yeah, well, thanks for coming and sharing a little insight. This has been another edition of Team USA Tuesday. I'm Mike Willis for Desiree Zavala. Thanks for tuning in.